welcome to Bell to Bell with Daniel Vela. Before I talk about Impact Wrestling from earlier tonight, actually, it's from 2 hours ago. As a matter of fact, I just saw the finish about 22 minutes ago. No, 24 minutes ago. So, I'm going to talk about that. But keeping in what I like to call, what I like to do, whether, okay, I don't usually do this a lot because I don't always think about it, or I don't realize the importance of it. Some times when I do an episode like this, it's really, I don't really have a reason normally to talk about some news like I usually do. However, because I follow an app that's all about news in wrestling, then that's why I'm doing that now. I'm hoping that by looking at the app for wrestling news, I'm hoping that by looking at that, I can still record this episode and look at the news at the same time. So let me see. It's going to take some time to get to the Twitter app itself. Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna need to look it up on Twitter. Okay, yeah, this is it. I could have sworn I was already following it. So let's look at any news they might have. Oh, earlier tonight, a WWE Hall of Famer was serving as a 12th Titan for their NFL for their game on Thursday Night Football. Oh, who else? Double J Jeff Jarrett, who's as they pointed out right here, a Tennessee native. Oh, he made an appearance at the Titans Pro Shop and met with fans. Then, after doing that, he would be at the Nissan Stadium, the opening game ceremony as the 12th Titan. That's what the words were. Okay, that's one news item. And I said the other day that I love to read about news, especially when it comes from podcasts. Well, this isn't a podcast per se that I'm reading this from, but it was some type of was an interview of sorts. They recently had interviewed WWE Hall of Famer Lita and about how her WWE career ended when she lost to Mickie James at Survivor Series. Um, that would have been 2006 because that being, of course, Mickie James, she had beat Trish Stratus for the women's title, and I think she might have lost the title to Lita, and then Lita lost it to Trish Stratus. So she was talking about attempting to get her retirement angle changed. So that's what I want to talk about right here. Right here, she had spoken about the behind the scenes. She disclosed the behind the scenes details regarding the situation. The reporter on this website said exactly what happened in a retirement match after the match is over and what Crime Time did. Shad Gaspard and JTG, what they tried to do with her property and clothes at the time. Selling them to the fans and everything. She said she wanted to change the angle alongside Trish Stratus while doing an interview with Ring the Bell. She said, in quotations, and I quote, "I mean, I've always been the red-headed stepchild, and it was not going to end any different way. I was literally the red-headed stepchild. It's okay," Lita said with a chuckle. I never was quiet about it. I was super uncool with it. I went up the chain. I went to the producers. I went to the writers. I went to Vince. I went back to the producers. I went back to the writers. I went back to Vince. It was a hard no. So that actually surprises me because of what she had done long before this happened. So that actually impresses me that she would try to get something like that changed. And being against something like that is really surprising to me because of because of what she did with Edge at that time. I'm not even going to say what it was because this is supposed to be to try to keep this PG. I'm not going to say what happened, but what she did was actually worse than what Crime Time did. So that's why I'm surprised that she was against that. And I read earlier today how Ric Flair talking about why he thinks WWE scripts promos today, and he said, and I agree with him, and it's just the fact that a lot of people there don't have a lot of experience, so in the business itself, so Vince does not have the confidence that he had with all the other does not have confidence with a lot of newer guys like he has with Rollins and Ambrose. And it's just, when you look at a lot of these guys, some of them just came through the door in NXT. They didn't spend any time in in the Indies. So that's why I agree with what Ric Flair said. On the other hand, some people are not really good at talking. And it does not matter how long they've been in the business or not. That's just not their strong suit. So that's why you can't really compare it to people that have had experience in the business. I don't know what the room. I'm sorry. Let me finish that and go into something else. There is a rumored match main event already for WrestleMania 35, which is most probably Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. I'm not saying it's definite, but it's probable because of how big this conversation is at the moment. Yeah, that's what it is. And what I think he would probably be referring to is the possibility of adding Charlotte Flair to that match and making it a triple threat match. And Jim Ross said he would be very comfortable in booking Lynch versus Rousey in the main event at WrestleMania. And he also said he wouldn't be offended if they added Charlotte to that match. But at the moment, Becky and Ronda would be my match on top. That's the hottest thing they have going right now. And I know this isn't a part of this conversation, but when I think about Becky Lynch's current character change, I really don't know what role she has. I don't know if she's babyface or villain, but as a matter of fact, I think that Charlotte is more of a heel right now than Lynch is. It looks to me like Lynch is more of a anti-hero than anything. It's like she's supposed to be a villain. She's supposed to be hated by the fans, but the fans don't receive her that way. So she's not a hero because she's acting like a bad girl. But she's not a villain. But she's not a villain in the eyes of the fans. So that's why we say anti-hero. So I really don't. So what I was gonna say was that this kind of reminds me in the opposite of Roman Reigns, where because she is good at talking and because she is believable, that's why she's so beloved now by the audience. However, when I'm thinking about I started thinking this just now, how it's because the fans wanted her to be on top. That's why turning her villain and having her say how she really felt and fussing and everything. I'm not saying she really was upset at how far Charlotte went. That part I don't believe. But what I do believe is how she felt about being overlooked. I'm sure she was very upset at being overlooked. that part I believe is true. And that's why I think they really were. That's why I believe they got behind her when she turned on Charlotte. There's something else I was thinking about, and I'm kind of Oh yeah, what I was thinking about, and thinking of comparing her to Reigns is that Roman Reigns, you can call him a villain in the eyes of the fans, but he he is not an anti-hero, but he's not who they want to. He has such I guess the best way of saying it is he's got such a an old-fashioned good old boy good guy attitude, and the way he comes off is like he said himself, not good or bad. He's just the guy, and he said that a few times, and I think that's what helped him the most, because it sure you don't want to be lukewarm. You either want to be fully hated or fully loved. So even though the company wanted him to be fully loved, being fully hated worked to his advantage a lot because it helped him come up with, or it helped somebody come up with him saying that about himself. And to show you that my point is about this is that they wanted Lynch to be on top, and they wanted her to have a character change. That's why they got behind her. A lot of people don't want Reigns on top, but they want a character change. If and when he comes back, they would probably welcome a character change because that's what they want. Quite honestly, I don't think he needs a character change. I think what everybody needs, and we might get it if they listen to the it's not a poll, but it's a series of questions that you send on Fan Council. If they listen, because I think about 95% of the fans probably voted for the wrestlers to have to be uncuffed with their promos. So if they listen, we might get that, and we might start getting better product in the future. So that's my take on why you can never get fans to cheer Roman Reigns, and it is because they don't want Reigns to be a good guy, and they can't believe in his character. I think most fans believe that he would be better as I believe he would be better received as a heel if he was to come back anytime soon. Not just on Tribute to the Troops, because I read that he took part in the show a couple of days ago in their taping of the show. And if he was to get chemotherapy, if he was able to get leukemia back into remission, in his words, kick leukemia's buttons back into remission, then what I believe he would need to do, besides of course letting his hair grow long again, because I really believe that chemotherapy, I don't think you can go without losing your hair, because that's what happens with chemotherapy. And I believe they have radiation in chemotherapy, so that I don't think you can go without losing your hair in chemotherapy. So if he was able to be into remission and get his hair grow long again, what I believe what he would need to do is just change his character. Because it worked for Becky Lynch, who was actually, to me, she kind of represented a lot of Roman Reigns, except she had been in the Indies and people could buy into her character. So that's my view what Reigns needs to do. Alright, I spoke about a couple of news sites. Oh, by the way, I found out earlier today that Larry the Axe Hennig died. There's no cause determined yet. It might just be his age, because he was 82 years old. There are a lot of fans out there saying that they were sorry and things of that nature. So Curtis Axel went on his verified Twitter account to say, on behalf of his family, thanks for the thoughts and prayers. And then underneath that, he said, I think he wrote this and took a picture of it. He said, 82 years old, 5 kids, 28 grandkids. No one has had a bigger impact on my wrestling career than my Papa X. He's been my biggest supporter since day one. Another father when I lost mine. We lost our king of the jungle today. Never thought I'd see this day. But he's with my dad now, so everything will be okay. Love you, Papa X. The Hennigs have always held our heads up high. We will continue to do so. You rest assured, the Hennig name will live on forever. I think that's amazing to read. I know that my mom's dad, when my dad's dad died, my other grandfather had become very close to my dad, and that's what that reminds me of. And that's great because of what that means. When your father-in-law becomes like your father, that's a big deal. Because you no longer see that their spouse's parent, you see them as your parent. Okay, let me talk about, I can't really say more than that. So as I'm talking, I'm almost crying when I think about my grandfather. My grandfather died 3 years ago, and I've been having a hard time thinking about both of my grandparents. My grandmother died 2 years ago, so it's even harder. So I'm just going to talk about tonight's Impact Wrestling show. First show was an Alternate X qualifying match for the recently vacated X Division title. For Impact Wrestling's homecoming episode in their old Asylum building that they used to have their weekly pay-per-views in the old days. And the first match was the recently newly crowned NWA. I'm not really sure what NWA title it was. All I know is that it was the original U.S. title, and they renamed it. So whatever title it is, it's the first ever champion is Willie Mack. He went against, I think it was Dave Crist to qualify. What I would say is the most interesting thing about this match was how well Dave Crist wrestled. Fortunately, though, by the way, going back for a minute to what title Willie Mack has in the NWA, it's called the National Heavyweight Championship. And there was one move that was really scary, and I think it was his release German suplex almost. I think it could have injured Dave Crist's neck, and the fact that Dave Crist ended the match by doing a super diamond cutter off the top rope is what's even amazing. The only disappointing thing was that he was able to do that because of his brother and Sami Callihan getting involved. I think his brother distracted the referee, and Sami Callihan got on the apron to distract Willie Mack. But outside of that, the rest of the match was great. I really have, as I'm fast forwarding this match on the DVR, I gotta keep looking at this to see what move it was where it looked like he could have hurt Dave Crist's neck. Okay, he did a code breaker. Willie Mack did. That part didn't hurt Dave Crist's neck. Or it didn't look like it could have hurt his neck. So we're gonna have to keep on looking at this. Okay, this might be it. Dave Crist hit a running enziguri to stop Willie Mack from jumping off top rope. But Willie Mack held on to the top rope to stop Dave Crist from using a superplex on him. Hitting with, I know what it is. Bad setup by Dave Crist. Instead of picking his head up, he just jumped down. It was like a sunset flip power bomb we used to see from Seth Rollins. So if Dave Crist did hurt his neck, then this is all on him. Okay. Next you have Allie, who recently had a character change. It looked like she was consumed by darkness or something. And she joined her former rival, Su Yung. So now she's not the same. She looks like She looks like she's been hypnotized or something by Su Yung. So she's acting like Su Yung, dressing like her, almost looking like her, to be honest with you. This is the only thing. This is the only storyline I don't like. I actually forgot the name of her opponent. All I know is that her opponent was used in a jobber capacity, where she had no offense in this match. Or if she did, it didn't last very long. I think she lost by Allie's version of the Codebreaker. Then she and Su Yung, after being interrupted by Kiera Hogan, I believe is her name, they both assaulted her, and that's supposed to be a close friend of hers. So that's why I believe her character's supposed to be hypnotized. And after that, Willie Mack was talking to his good friend Rich Swann about not worrying about what happened earlier, but just focusing on him having a match against the other Chris brother next week. Then they have I'm gonna actually have to play the audio for this, because the only person I know is the last person, the name Lemons. I forgot his tag team partner's name. They go against the New Desi Hit Squad. So I have to put the audio on for that just to find out who their names are.
The opponents tonight for the Desi Hit Squad, Damian Hyde and Manny Lemons.
So Damian Hyde and Lemons lost to the Desi Hit Squad. Next, Desi Hit Squad has a member in the team that is bald-headed, very intense, because of being very intense, very physical. So he had about 80% of the hard work, especially against Lemons, as he picked him up and drove him into the corner. And this, the purpose of doing this was just to establish dominance, to make the other tag teams understand what they're capable of. And in tag team wrestling, what I always loved about tag team wrestling, not just them coming out together and the same music, but the ability to create tag team finishers. Like, anybody who loves tag team wrestling and has watched videos from the 80s and 90s, who can forget the Road Warriors and their famous Doomsday Device? Or Harlem Heat's, because that was my favorite team growing up. Then I also loved Road Warriors, but Harlem Heat were my number one favorite team. They had a move called the Big Apple, which was to complement their kayfabe hometown in New York. Would pick, I believe, with Booker T's brother, would pick up their opponent, and he would come across with the side kick, and I think he would do that from the top rope normally. No, as I think about it, he would do it standing up. So yeah, I always loved tag team combinations. So Lemon's tag team partner was picked up by the bald-headed wrestler, and his tag team and bald-headed wrestler's tag team partner he actually hit a high knee to the opponent's side of his head, it looked like, and then with a Samoan drop, and they won. So I'd say that I guess because they don't have I gotta tell you the truth. Just like WWE is in a situation where they need to do something new. Impact's been that way for a while now, especially since they relocated the company office from Nashville, Tennessee, to actually going all the way out of the country into Canada. So it's hard to say what it is, but I guess because there literally are no TNA originals anymore, so the tag team division, you have to create a new division because of that. Same thing with the X division and the heavyweight division. There's no, and even the women's division. Outside of their real life women's agent for the company, there really is no, there's no more foundation. There's no more foundational people in the company to look at. Like, Storm left because of the direction of the company. Chris Harris left a long time ago. Jeff Jarrett has his own company. Styles and Roode are in the WWE. Petey Williams, I haven't seen him in 2 or 3 months. Sanjay Dutt is one of the bookers now, along with Scott D'Amore, I believe. So it's really, I gotta be honest, when you have a company with very little, when you have a company with very little foundation, very little foundational members in the company to represent the foundation of the company, then it's going to be very difficult to keep the fan base. However, because they do things very old-fashioned, like every character they have is not told how to act, they let them be themselves. That's what's keeping them. I knew there was something I forgot to look at. Katarina Waters went against Jordynne Grace 2 weeks ago. And every time she goes against Jordynne Grace, she can't win. So she said right here that she needed to find somebody to beat her for her. So I gotta find out who this woman is. So I'm not only gonna press play, I'm gonna play the audio for y'all and for myself.
Apparently she wants to come in here and make a name for herself riding on my tail feathers. Well, here's a little nugget of wisdom for you. When something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. When I told her I wasn't conniving, I wasn't manipulative, I wasn't vicious, that was a lie. Remember what happened to Grado and Joe Hendry after they crossed me? Poof, disappeared, never to be seen again. And the same thing is going to happen to Jordynne Grace, courtesy of my new friend. If you know what's good for you, stay out of her way. Jordynne Grace meets Ruby Race, my new friends and your worst nightmare.
Brian Cage used option C to secure.
Wow. Now that I know who her name is, I'm trying to figure out what her name is. I know it's Ruby. I don't know if that name is Grace or Race. Then they show flashback moment of the week, which is not just, it's two moments. The moment of Chris Sabin cashing in his X Division title, or handing the title to Hulk Hogan, and then him winning the title the week after. And this actually is a great way to plug their network. I remember they used to, in the first year of the WWE Network, they used to do something similar to this. Like, I remember they were gonna air SummerSlam 97 or 98 when Mark Miro and Jacqueline went against Sable and a mystery partner, and they had announced on WWE TV, Monday Night Raw, as a matter of fact, they had announced that was the first time Edge made a pay-per-view appearance. So I actually think that because the network is so popular, instead of just showing previews on newer episodes of network originals like Table for Three and Ride Along, I think it would be smart to let them know, show them previews again of archived pay-per-views they're showing on Sunday, so that so that people can tune in. I mean, people can see the schedule, but if they don't know what's great about it, it can be very. It can make them not want to see it because not knowing who is on the show. So I think it would be great to show a preview of it on TV again, because it would help. Bring in even more subscribers. Some people canceled the network because of the Saudi Arabia event, and if they would start showing previews of archive, not just pay-per-views, but actually show archived TV show previews, that would help them too. The next segment and Impact was Eli Drake talking to a backstage interviewer about the letter he had gotten and how it was an invitation from Abyss to meet him at Monsters Ball next month at Homecoming. And once again, I'm going to play this audio because all I remember him doing was whining about getting a challenge, and how that's the only way to get a match now. So I fast forwarded that because I didn't realize how important that was to the episode and to me talking about it. So I'm gonna have to play that.
Ball. Abyss.
This is what it takes. A child's handwriting is what it takes to make a match here. You don't understand. Here we stand. We're looking at Homecoming. We're looking at Nashville, Tennessee, a return of sorts, wouldn't you say? January 6th. And this, a handwritten message from a lunatic, all of a sudden becomes official. That makes a match Monsters Ball. You know what this is? This is sour grapes. Why? Because you're a little bit angry, aren't you? Because I said I was going to have a class action lawsuit. Well, that lawsuit, I said it was done, and you just can't get over it, can you? Well, I tell you this, Abyss, if I have to, I already got rid of Joseph Park. Abyss is going to find the same exact fate at Monsters Ball at Homecoming. You got no other choice. It's not an insult. It's just a fact of life.
I always say this. Do you even know what that means? It's the reason I say that is because he says it so much. Some people, when they say something after a while, they may not even know what it means anymore. So I'll say what's affected life for the character Eli Drake is that unless people are older than him and have been beat up enough, unless it's one of those two options, the reason he's not back in the heavyweight title picture is because he's better at talking than actually wrestling. I'm not saying he's not a good wrestler. I'm saying in his character, and I said this on Twitter last week, he calls himself the last of a dying breed. The truth of the matter is that he's one of many of the current breed. Soft. Made a male, like my brother likes to say. And I mean, I know in real life, they've had I know the WWE faced a real life lawsuit of unsafe working environment. But when you look at that, that's more plausible than what Eli Drake's character is suing for. It's more unsafe working environment was supposed to be real life, and it's more like, okay, with Sable, who made the lawsuit, of course she lost the lawsuit, but if I was to really make an argument for why that was more plausible, I may not be unsafe may be a poor choice of words. A better word for it would be a lack of respect. Like X-Pac, trying to figure out how to say this the right way. He harassed her. And I don't even remember what it was about. But when I read that and I heard him say he didn't want to say anything negative because he didn't want to be beaten up by Brock Lesnar, I said that he shouldn't say anything, period, because it's not like she went to him. When you harass somebody, that means you're guilty. So that's one of the reasons why I thought that she had grounds for the lawsuit. So, I'm just trying to make a point of what the storyline for the lawsuit is compared to the past lawsuit. Okay, the next match was another Ultimate X qualifying match between Matt Sydal and his student Ethan Page. It was not just a great match, but finish was really interesting. I think Matt Sydal went for a maneuver like Hammerlock turned into an Oklahoma roll. That's when he lost, and I gotta look at it again. Went for a Swanton Bomb, Ethan Page did. After the 2 count was countered by Matt Sydal to a crucifix pin, Ethan Page kicked out of that. Went for another pin to pick up. Then he went for pin 2, 3. Won the match. What was great about this is that Matt Sydal shook his hand and walked off. I actually was surprised at this after I don't know how many years it's been since I saw Raven, or to use his real name, Scott Levy, appear as Raven on Impact. Brought him back to do a segment with Eddie Edwards, and he said to Eddie Edwards that he has seen what he's been doing and how comparing what he's done to what Eddie's done to what he has done. He said, Eddie, you haven't gone far enough. So he told Eddie, it's time for you to make your own choice. So obviously, what they're building to is for Eddie to go from hero to villain himself and leave the asylum or whatever he's in and just do what he wants to do, which could lead to a full-blown heel turn. The most interesting match they're going to have next month at their homecoming event is the Lucha Brothers, who are MLW Tag Team Champions, challenging the new LAX for the Impact Tag Team Championship titles. And the reason it's interesting is how last week Conan told the new LAX to how bad of an idea it is for them to challenge the Lucha Brothers to a match, because when he was younger, he witnessed in AAA in Mexico how his good friends Psychosis and Rey Mysterio Jr., when they faced each other just out of their competitive nature, they ended up not being able to be friends again. So that's what makes this match so interesting, is to see how they end up coming out of this match on Homecoming. Personally, I can't wait to see that match, because Conan's a manager for New LAX and Impact, and he's a manager for the Lucha Brothers and MLW. So I'm really interested in seeing how that ends up going. And I go to an interview with Taya Valkyrie and Johnny Impact. Almost said Johnny Nitro by mistake. They go against Moose and Knockouts champion Tessa Blanchard. I believe that some of the things that Tess has been doing against the referees, hitting them with right hands and, basically beating them up, I think that's character development right there. And if I'm not mistaken, Gail Kim is going to be used as the as the referee for their rematch at Homecoming next month. What's really interesting is how just in wrestling in general, they don't do this in New Japan, but as I think about it, come to think of it, Impact and WWE are the only ones who have women's wrestling on TV at the moment that I watch. Lucha Underground has male versus female. I'm not gonna watch that. So recently they've been having the women be more rough with each other. You know, the way that the men used to be, using tables, using tonight. I saw after this mixed tag team match was over, saw that I think Tessa Blanchard used a chair against Taya Valkyrie. Then I found out that as a result of the Riot Squad putting Natalia through a table this past Monday, made it official that at TLC in a couple of weeks, Natalia will go against the leader of the Riot Squad in a tables match. So aside from them building to that kind of match, which is what we call a gimmick match for the pay-per-view, I don't know what the point of them doing that with Tessa Blanchard and Taya Valkyrie is. What I do know is that Taya Valkyrie made Tessa Blanchard tap out. I don't even know what this move is called. So her using a chair was just to get back at Taya Valkyrie. As luckily, can't even believe I'm about to say this. Luckily, Killer Cross pulled the chair away from Tessa Blanchard. So it looks like nothing bad happened with the steel chair. Okay. I'm gonna try to talk about MLW tomorrow night and New Japan. They play at the same time, so I'm gonna have to try my best to not take too long when I talk about my news, my news/rumors segment. Okay. Well, I said that on Wednesdays and Saturdays I would talk about Monday Night Ratings War. So Saturday I'll talk more about Raw versus Nitro, and this time it will be about trying to remember how you say this. This time will likely be about the night after In Your House 95, September 95, when the main event is the tag team, intercontinental, and heavyweight titles all being defended at the same time in a tag team match. So I very excited to talk about that time. What I am actually most excited to see, or not excited but interested to see, is the beginning of 96. I'm trying to see how I can talk about it without watching the full episodes, because let's face it, the beginning of 96 was the beginning of the Attitude Era. Goldust is really who I'm referring to. And as a matter of fact, I had to skip I had to skip their one of their first vignettes this past Wednesday when I was talking about Raw versus Nitro. So that's my latest episode talking about Impact Wrestling and some of the news, and I hope that y'all continue to hear this, and I hope when I talk about the news and when I use some examples, hope that y'all enjoy it. And by the way, I have to look at the email. I'm sorry I didn't do this before, but I forgot that that I was asked forgot that I had been asked by this service, by this podcast service, to plug the service. I had sent a few emails back and forth, and now I'm having a hard time finding it. By the way, as I'm recording this, I want everybody to know before I end this episode that this is gonna start being aired on Pulse Podcast Network, and I would have to look back at the network itself, but they have, I already know, they do have a lot of sports podcasts for Baltimore, for people who live in the not Baltimore, but Boston area. They have a podcast about the Boston Celtics and the NBA. They have Pulse Sports, where it's hosted by Tim Shiles, Shields, covers NFL, MLB, and NBA, and released weekly. Celtics Pulse, by the way, is hosted by Adam Taylor, Brendan Nunez, Derek Falcion, and Cody Chalifo, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. It's a new but a growing Celtics podcast, and this is not just hot takes, but it's also opinions. They have regular guests, and they cover more than just the Celtics. They also have the Donut Bag, hosted by Joey Bugov Donuts. And this is about Pittsburgh sports and pop culture, and it's hosted by Joey. Of course, I already said it's hosted by. Oh, this is something that I would love to be a guest on myself, because they talk about Pittsburgh sports. My favorite NFL team, even though I'm from the home of the Saints. I'm from Eunice, Louisiana. So even though I'm from the state of Louisiana, I chose to be a fan of the Steelers. So that's a show, and also I don't really do fantasy basketball or football, because I don't keep up with it the way I should. And I try to keep up the wrestling fantasy, but I for some reason, I just don't get the emails when I need to get on there. So that's why it's hard for me to keep up with fantasy that I know I can do. Also, they have Ballin' and Gamin', but hosted by Cody Olson. This is talking about fantasy football. And it's statistical fantasy football data also. Smart to Death podcast gives you premium wrestling talk from Kyle and Anthony. Talk about the hottest topics in the world of pro wrestling. And they give a rundown with wrestling news over 3 rounds. They have quick, hard-hitting opinions and news that we the fans need to hear. I don't want to go too much longer, so those are the shows, and this news show that I call Bell to Bell with Daniel Vale. Bell to Bell will hopefully will be aired soon because of these emails that I've been having with them. And like I said a few times, I would love to have guests, but I can't have guests per se because of the difficulty. But outside of that, I love to do this podcasting thing, and I really believe that getting that going on there, Pulse Podcast Network, would be great. Would be a great way to build this show up or to give it more exposure. So please listen to it, not just on Spreaker, but on Pulse Podcast Network. Thank you and goodbye.